Okay, welcome to linuxin.com. Today we are going to give you information that less than 1% Linux users have. So in today's video, we are going to talk about all sorts of attacking methods and how you can get along with them. This is the information that is really rare. And before discussing it, let's jump into a topic known as computer security. Okay. So computer security is the term which explains itself as a prevention of attacks from hackers. So what it does that it detects and avoid almost all sorts of attacks. So detection is the first step in preventing the attack. Attackers are usually known as intruders or hackers. So hackers are usually, they are the experts of the system. Okay, so they know the loopholes in the system, in the network, and hence it is easy for them to attack. Okay. So unfortunately, gaining access to a system is much easier than it seems, whether the system is partially protected or not protected at all. So intruders constantly discover vulnerabilities that allow them to enter different layers of the software. So the first thing that we have to do is to break down the myth of computer security. So it simply does not exist. What we can achieve is a certain level of security that makes us feel safe within certain parameters. So computer security is the name of consistency, realism, and learning on a practically daily basis because intruders or hackers are consistently educating themselves and they are trying to figure out ways to get into the system. Possible attacks are a constant threat to our system and can compromise their functioning as well as the data that we handle. Okay. So the threats that we may suffer could affect the following three aspects. So number one is confidentiality. So confidentiality stands for who will be able to access. So the information must only be accessible to authorized person. Okay. So what happens is that when the hacker attacks, now the information is not only visible to the authorized user, but it is also visible to the hacker. So the confidentiality is affected in a great way when the hacker attacks. The next is integrity. So integrity stands for what can be done with it. Okay. So the information must only be modified by an authorized person. But when the hacker enters the system, the hacker can modify the information as well. So the integrity basically gets affected in a huge way. Accessibility stands for how and when it can be accessed. The information must be available for those who need it and when they need it on condition that they are authorized. So when the hacker attacks, they can access the information whenever they want, however they want, and they can do anything with the information. Okay. So let's move on to a certain classification of the usual types of attacks that we can suffer. Authentication. So authentication is an attack which is basically done by hackers to gain access to the programs or services by falsifying the identity of the participant. So hacker tries to pretend that it is one of the users, but in reality it is not. Then we have got interception. So interception is something in which hackers get the data by getting into the middle. So for example, if I am user 1 and I have sent data to user 2, then hackers would not let the data to reach user 2 and they would direct it towards themselves. So they are intercepting and getting the information that were not even directed to them. Then we have got falsification. So it's the replacement of real users or machines or servers by fake users or fake machines or fake servers which do not really exist. And the real user considers them the real ones and share information naively. Then we have got theft. So theft is basically unauthorized use of resources. Then we have got vandalism. Vandalism is the phenomena in which different mechanisms are used to interrupt the current running systems partially, or even it can shut down completely. Okay. Okay, so now where the attack has occurred and what can be done. So basically there are four places, the four locations at which the attack could occur: hardware, software, data, and the fourth one, the last one, is communication channel. So now let's discuss them. So in this respect, the hardware that we're talking about, the threat is directly on accessibility. So we just have to take good security measures where the machines are located. So in this matter, physical measures really count. Okay, so for example, if I have a server, a computer, and it has really sensitive information, then I have to make sure that I have some real good security, okay, around it, and the location is safe where the hardware resides. Okay, then we have got software. So in this matter, physical measures really don't count. Once accessibility is compromised during an attack, programs may be deleted or disabled, and it can also deny the access. So in this case, integrity, the default functioning of the program, could be altered so that it fails in certain situations, or even it can perform the task in the interest of the attacker. Okay, then we've got the data. So whether the data is structured, such as in database services or version management or simple files, attacks that threaten accessibility can destroy or eliminate data, thus denying access to them. Okay, so if the data is confidential, attackers could read and the integrity of the data could be affected. Then we have got communication channel. So methods that accessibility can cause the destruction or elimination of the messages sent through the network, or even they can prevent access to the network. With regards to confidentiality, reading and observation of the traffic of messages from one machine to another is affected. With regards to integrity, it would be the modification, duplication, or falsification of incoming or outgoing messages. So for example, you are user 1 and you send message to user 2, and a hacker accesses your message and changes it. So if you have said, "How are you?" let's say, then the hacker changes it and says, let's say, "What's your account number?" And if the user 2 really trusts you, the hacker is going to screw him over, because the user 2 is going to give you his bank account number or CVV codes, etc. Okay, so now let's get into some genuine methods of attacking. Okay, the techniques. So on number 1, we have got bug exploits. There are multiple methods of attacks, and they are normally always fashionable. And they basically keep on changing over time. Okay, so the method that we are talking about exists today at the time of the making of this video. Okay, so they are fashionable, they change over time. All right, so maybe when you're watching this video, there are some new methods as well. So let's talk about the first method, which is bug exploits. So while developing a hardware, software, service, or protocol, it is impossible for manufacturer or developer to make a perfect product. Okay, so the attackers later on are going to find out some shortcomings of the hardware, software, service, or protocol, and they're going to use those holes to get into the system. Okay, so the solution to it, that you can later on basically update the protocols and services, and you can make your product better. Okay, then we've got virus. So a computer virus is a type of malicious software that, when executed, replicates itself by modifying other computer programs and inserting its own code. When this replication succeeds, the affected areas are then said to be infected with a computer virus. Okay, so you have got some antivirus software tools that you can download and basically install and run them to avoid viruses on your system. Okay, now let's talk about worm. A computer worm is a standalone malware computer program that replicates itself in order to spread to other computers. So worms almost always cause at least some harm to the network, even if only by consuming bandwidth, whereas viruses almost always corrupt or modify files on a targeted computer. Okay, so the virus is going to affect the files on a one computer, but worm is going to affect multiple computers on same network. Okay, then we have got Trojan horse. Trojan horse is basically a destructive program that masquerades as a dangerous application. Unlike viruses, Trojan horses do not replicate themselves, but they can be just as destructive. One of the most dangerous types of Trojan horse is a program that claims to rid your computer of viruses, but instead it introduces viruses onto your computer. So beware. Then we have got backdoor. So a backdoor is a malware type that negates normal authentication procedures to access a system. As a result, remote access is granted to resources within an application, such as databases and file servers, giving preparators the ability to remotely issue system commands and update malware that could later on harm your system. Then we have got logic bombs. So A logic bomb is a piece of code inserted into an operating system or software application that implements a malicious function after a certain amount of time. Logic bombs are often used with viruses, worms, and Trojan horses to time with them to do maximum damage before being noticed. Then we have got keyloggers. Okay, so keylogger, basically it can either be a software or hardware. While the programs themselves are legal, with many of them being designed to allow employers to oversee the use of their computers, keyloggers are most often used for the purpose of stealing passwords and other important confidential information. Okay. Then we have got port scanners. So a port scanner is an application designed to probe a server or host for open ports. Such an application may be used by administrators to verify security policies of their networks and by attackers to identify network services running on a host and exploit vulnerabilities. Then we've got sniffers. So a sniffer, it can also be used legitimately or illegally to capture data being transmitted on a network. A network router reads every packet of data passed to it, determining whether it is intended for a destination within the router's own network or whether it should be passed further along the internet. So after sniffers, we have got hijacking. Hijacking is a type of network security attack in which the attacker takes control of the system and the communication. It's the same as an airplane hijacker takes control of the flight. Okay. Then we have got buffer overflow. So a buffer overflow or buffer overrun occurs when more data is put into a fixed length buffer than the buffer can handle. Okay. So the extra information which has to go somewhere can overflow into adjacent memory space, corrupting or overwriting the data held in that space. Then we have got DOS attacks. So it's also known as denial of service. So in computing, a DOS attack is a cyber attack in which the perpetrator seeks to make a machine or network resource unavailable to its intended users by temporarily or indefinitely disrupting services of a host connected to the internet. Then we have got spoofing. So it is a technique used to gain unauthorized access to computers, whereby the intruder sends message to a computer with an IP address indicating that the message is coming from a trusted host. Then we've got SQL injection. In-band SQL injection occurs when an attacker is able to use the same communication channel to both launch the attack and gather the results. The two most common types of in-band SQL injection are error-based SQLI and union-based SQLI, while I means injection. So error-based SQL injection and union-based SQL injection. So finally, we have cross-site scripting, which is also known as XSS. So it is a type of computer security vulnerability which is typically found in web applications. So XSS enables attackers to inject client-side scripts into web pages viewed by other users. So a cross-site scripting vulnerability, it can be used by attackers to bypass access controls such as the same origin policy. So you can avoid it by actually not visiting the websites that you're not familiar with, and the websites which are actually showing the SSL encryption, like on the top left corner in the bar, if you see the link of the website, if it has, if it shows secure, if you're using Chrome, then it is secure. It is an SSL certified website, so you don't need to worry. You can use that website. But if it doesn't have that SSL certification, you'd be able to see not secure. Then obviously do not put any sort of information which is related to your credit card generally, and do not download any of the stuff from such website until you trust them. Okay, so I hope you have enjoyed today's video. For written articles, you can visit our website linuxin.com. If you have any questions, ask them in the comments below. We'll try to be as responsive as possible. Thank you so much for watching.